All right, we are back. Invest in You. Today we are broadcasting from Asia and from North America. We got two people that are going to talk about business, law, and some pitfalls and something to think about. So with me today, I got Matthew Fornaro. He is in Florida and he is a business attorney. He has got a broad experience in doing things. And one reason why I want to have him here is he's not the classical like lawyer helps businesses. I like that he's very much old school legal, plus also what I can read between the lines. We have not met before this chat, so pragmatic and also try to prevent and preempt disputes. And you also know a few tricks about mediation. So yeah, let's jump in. How are you today?
Good, Frederick. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. So going back, how do you come up with the idea that you would study law?
Well, it's interesting. I'm over here, as you pointed out, in North America, in the US. So growing up, we had a very popular television program called The People's Court.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
it
yeah.
was reality
Yes.
TV before there was reality TV. So I really liked watching it. It was people going before like a real court, but it was on TV
Yes.
resolving civil issues like breach of contract, money owed, things like that. So I always found that interesting, and that's actually how I became initially interested in the law, and then it
Yeah.
just kind of blossomed from there. Went to undergrad. I was a political science major, so I could only go to law school or be a politician. So I went to law school.
Yeah.
And then through the evolution of my career over the last 20 plus years, I got into business law and focusing on helping small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups with their various legal issues.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So really, many of you out there are small, medium business owners, and that means that hopefully you will get something very tangible and actionable out of this. At the very least, we hope to shine some light on some things you can avoid by thinking in advance. So, at what point do you usually run to this? We will fix it later. The business owner thinking that this legal thing we will fix it later. What's the biggest headache with that mindset, number one?
Oh, that's not a good mindset because you can fix anything later or
It's
attempt to fix
cost you
anything later,
money.
no matter what it is. Whether it's your health, whether it's
Yes.
going to the dentist or whatever, you can always put it off. But when you finally go there, you're going to get bad news. So, a lot of businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of startups are very eager to get into business
Yes.
or to start their business or to do whatever. So they want to skip over the due diligence and the legwork and the background, and they just want to get out there and start doing stuff. And
Yeah.
then a lot of them have the mantra of we'll fix it later, or during the course of their business, they'll have issues that arise that aren't, game changers or stopper issues, but they're issues that should be addressed then. And they're
Yeah.
like, we'll get to it later.
Yes.
So it's all throughout the course of the business, from before it starts to throughout the business. A lot of people take that mindset, and that's obviously not the correct mindset that you want to have in order to succeed in business.
Yeah. So right now it is quite popular to do startups. It's been for the last few decades, and it's quite common also to have like a co-founder starting already there. You got the business idea, you got two people, and they jump into bed legally together by doing a company together. What are some of the basic fundamentals? For example, mentioning like shareholder agreement and things like that. Just like the first few steps, starting a company, two guys that are best friends today, but maybe not later.
Correct. Well, look, nobody goes into business saying they want to fail. Everyone wants to
Exactly.
succeed. Everyone wants to do the best. Everyone wants to get along with who they're in business with.
Yes.
Unfortunately, life happens and disputes arise in the business, disputes arise between people. Maybe your wife doesn't like your partner's
Yep.
wife,
Yep.
or
Funny you
something
mentioned
happened
that.
and
Yes.
something happens.
Yes.
So it can happen at any point during the course of the business. So when you're going into business with someone, not just a partnership, but if you're in a like an LLC here in
Yeah.
America, where you're both members of an LLC or you're a corporation and you're both shareholders of a corporation or officers in a corporation,
Yes.
you have to make sure you have everything in writing and you have all your foundation documents and your
Yep.
governing documents before you do anything, before you actually start the business. You need to have them in place.
Yes.
And those documents tell you the who, what, when, where, why, and how about your business, about who does what,
Yes.
how you do things, how you spend money, how you make money, who's responsible for what, who's liable for what. And if you don't have those documents in place
Yes.
from the very beginning and you run into problems, you're going to really have problems because those documents say how
Yes.
you resolve issues. And if you don't have those documents, then you're left at the mercy of whatever law applies and you're not
Yep.
going to like it.
Yeah, no, I've been in business long enough to see partnerships fail, shareholders that had to be exited. In England, we got a term called bad leaver, basically non-performance by a corporate director, not doing what he or she should do, etc., etc. So, what are some of the like common things that can pop up? Um, if you think about some of the common what ifs that people forget about when it's a honeymoon phase.
Like I said, putting in all the documents,
Yeah.
making sure you have the governing documents, and then
Yes.
making sure you have contracts between your company and whoever you're doing business with,
Yeah.
whether it's a vendor, whether it's a landlord, whether it's a retailer, whatever it is, internet service, or whatever it is you're doing, you have to have a contract in
Yeah.
place. And
Yeah.
then if you have a website, you have to have terms of service. And if you have an app, you have to have terms of service and all that stuff. And that's a lot of
Yeah.
due diligence kind of things that are overlooked during the initial phase of the business because maybe you have your governing documents and you think that's good enough, but it's
Yeah.
not because if you have a relationship with anyone or anything outside of your business, you have to have documents that govern that too, and
Yes.
that's contracts. So a lot of people just skip over that and they'll be like, okay, I'll buy, 100 widgets from you, Frederick. Send me an invoice. And then, okay, well, we don't have a contract.
Yep.
So you deliver me 100 widgets and I don't pay you. And now what the hell do we do?
Exactly.
Or I pay you and you don't deliver me 100 widgets. So
Yeah.
what the hell do we do? We don't have
Yeah.
a
Exactly.
contract. So a lot of handshake deals, a lot of back and forth emails where things aren't clear and stuff like that.
Yes.
A lot of that is what happens during the honeymoon phase of the startup or the beginning of the business.
Yeah. And to have those documents, it doesn't cost an arm and a leg, and there are standard templates, and that leads into another thing which is very popular right now to dabble with the law and AI to fix your business problems. I've done some work that's actually been very productive, but I know the law before I ask the questions. Uh, what is the danger with thinking that you're now your own solicitor or lawyer together with
Well,
Claude
you
or
know,
ChatGPT or whatever?
Frederick, look, first, I'm a big fan of AI. I like AI.
Me
Okay, I
too.
use AI in my legal practice. I
Yes.
use AI in running my business. I use AI in my SEO, my social media. Okay, I'm a big fan of AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
However,
Yes.
I'm in charge of the AI. The buck, as the Americans say, the buck stops here. It stops with me.
Yes.
I make sure I quality control and check everything that I put out that's
Yep.
touched by AI before I put it out into the world to make sure it's correct, not
Yes.
hallucinated, factually correct, legally correct, whatever, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't do that. They just take what the AI sends
Yes.
them and they hit print, send, file, whatever, and then they run into a lot of problems. So the issue when you're trying to cut corners or get answers for legal issues from the AI
Yes.
is that it may give you the right answer, it may give you the wrong answer, but
Yes.
you're not going to know because you're not the legal authority. And it's just like, for the last quarter century of doing a Google search, it's the
Yeah.
same thing. It's just
Yeah.
a higher evolution of it, of you don't know what
Exactly.
information you're getting, whether
Yeah.
it's right or wrong.
So that
And
yeah, go ahead.
And it's a problem because if you put out the wrong stuff out there or use the wrong form or the wrong contract, you're gonna, bad things are guaranteed to happen at some point
Yes.
in time.
Yeah, no, good point. Like I said in the intro, I'm not sure if it was before or after we hit record that I've not been into litigation yet. But if you do business long enough, yeah, it's higher risk that someone will try to come after you legally sooner or later, whatever that might mean to your business, which leads to a very important decision. How do you pick your legal advisor? I have probably worked with roughly 5 firms over the last 15 odd years in England. So it means that I have specialists for different aspects and so on and so forth. How do you pick the right legal partner or even firm if you like to have more broad uh, service portfolio?
Sure. So what I would say is the best, most time-tested, infallible way to find a professional, whether it's an attorney, an accountant,
Yep.
commercial insurance broker, banker, whatever it is, wherever you are, no matter where in the world, is get a referral from someone who you know and
Yes.
trust,
Yes.
who either has used that person,
Yep.
knows someone who's used that person or firm or whatever,
Exactly.
can vouch for them and can give you a direct referral. Because
Yeah.
that way, you know that there's a real world connection there of someone who's used them, vetted them,
Yes.
can vouch for them, has experienced them, and whatever. And, I'm assuming if you don't have an attorney, maybe you have an accountant. Have your accountant tell you about an attorney, or
Yeah.
vice
Exactly.
versa.
Yep.
Or if you
Yep.
have an insurance agent, have your insurance agent tell you about an attorney. Or, maybe you have a friend who's in business who has an attorney, ask them to tell, just go down the chain of
Yep.
people and
Yep.
things and look for referrals. That's generally the best way because with I'll speak for me in the US. Okay, I'm
Yes.
not going to speak for guys abroad or people abroad or whatever, but I can tell you how things can work in the
Yes.
US. Okay, so for professionals, for attorneys, accountants, doctors, whatever. I mean, a lot of people just do online searches.
Yep.
Historically now for the last quarter century, it's been a Google search. Okay. Or if you're into Bing, which I don't know anyone who is, but if you're in whatever you do, or now you do an AI search. Okay. The thing is that a lot of that stuff could be genuine. A lot of that stuff could be good information, but a lot of that stuff can be manipulated
Yes.
and can be whatever. I'll just leave it at it can be manipulated. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
So you don't know what you're specifically getting. You kind of get an idea, but it's not 100%. If you get a referral from someone, that's pretty much vouched for, vetted, and it's legitimate. So that would be
Yep.
my recommendation is to find someone via referral.
Yeah. I would say just high level scanning my own little hard drive here on top of my shoulders. The 2 times where I've been the least satisfied with legal advice were from not my own referrals, and one was from like a Google search, just because of the vicinity. That was not the smartest way to search.
Hmm.
It was close by. That was not the best way to do it. So I can completely agree that most of my business with professionals like yourself has been through referrals and recommendations. Full stop. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the best way, and that's the most tried and true way that's gonna be there forever.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah. All right. So jumping into yourself, how did you become so broad in terms of things you can cover? How do you pick up so diverse skills?
you know, in law school, they teach you a lot about theory and
Yes.
ideas and stuff. They don't really teach you how to do stuff in the real world.
Yes.
So, my legal knowledge, and in particular, my business knowledge and my
Yeah.
ability to help my clients, not just as an attorney at law, but a counselor at law and part of their business advising team, along with other professionals, is based on
Yeah.
20 plus years of real world experience of dealing with, other attorneys, businesses, clients, just running the gamut and then picking all that up through the last 2 decades, particularly the last 11 years of having my own firm and focusing on helping like small
Yeah.
businesses,
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, and startups.
Yeah. No, so many people's view of legal people out there might be from watching Suits, and it's deal making, it's private equity, it's high numbers, and it's clever people dealing with other clever people. What is the reality behind the facade?
You know, Frederick, it's interesting because as an attorney,
Yes.
I told you I watched when I was a kid, I watched the People's Court. I
Yeah,
like
I
the
know. Yeah,
People's
yeah.
Court. Okay. I'm not a big fan of legal TV or
I
legal
understand that
streaming
completely.
at this
Yeah.
point or whatever, because it's very, you know, I don't want to say bothersome to watch, but it's like inaccurate,
Yeah.
okay, at every level,
No,
okay.
it's
And
exactly. It is not reality.
it's
It is.
entertainment. And I can only
Yes.
imagine it's like when like when a doctor watches like a doctor show and they're
Yeah,
like, or
exactly.
great, they watch Grey's Anatomy, like what the hell is going on here or whatever. And that's how it is when you watch legal
Cringe.
TV
Yes.
or legal shows. I can tell
Yeah.
you this, okay? Again, I'll tell you from the American perspective. I don't know how
Absolutely.
popular it is around the world or whatever, but I'll tell you from my experience, and again, I don't really seek out a lot of like, I don't watch Suits, I don't watch like, like shows like Boston Legal or things
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
old shows like that or whatever. Okay. But I can tell you that from my experience, the two most accurate fictional portrayals of at least what I like civil law,
Yes.
not criminal law, but civil law would be the movie The Rainmaker from 1997 with Matt Damon, Danny DeVito, John
Yeah.
Voight, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. It was based on a John Grisham book.
Yes.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And then certain non-fanciful portions of the TV show Better Call Saul, a lot of that stuff very accurate too. Some of
Yeah.
the stuff is crazy and out there in that show, but some of the stuff about the actual like day-to-day operations and stuff, that's actually pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Everything else is like just fictionalized versions of whatever. Like
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
watching like the new, here in the States, like the Netflix show based off the TV show, The Lincoln Lawyer is really popular. Even that is kind of
Yes.
like, I'm like, that's not real. But it's just with any profession, if you watch the fictionalized version of
Yes.
your profession or your career,
Yeah,
whatever,
exactly.
it's going to
Yeah.
be like, what the hell am I watching? And that's how
Yeah.
it is when you watch legal dramas and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of what I'm working with at the moment. Like if I am close to reality and I read the news are quite far away from the
Yeah,
reality.
no.
Yeah, yeah. So jumping back to on track to my thinking here, contract and risks. So thinking about contract and risk, what kind of clauses are ultimately undermining founders? That it looks like this is homemade, like it's shining through too much. Like you're reviewing the opposing side's documents, and it says like homemade all over it. What kind of clauses and ideas sticks out to you?
It's just like generalized stuff and like really over the top statements. I mean, look, I deal with enough AI in what I
Yes.
do and seeing stuff where I
Yeah.
can like, like I'm not like an AI like a metal detector or whatever,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
figure out AI real quick. And, you can tell from contracts. I mean, just basic things like in
Yes.
structure, font, what's bold, what's not, what's dashed, and what's, I mean, you just tell
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
AI generated by attorneys,
Yeah.
let alone like, lay people.
Yeah.
And you can just tell a lot of stuff is just like really, you know, over the top statements or really matter of fact statements or really blanket statements that don't really apply to what we're doing or whatever, or things that kind of are just generalities or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can just tell, and when you look through the contract, or things aren't really specified that should be
Yeah.
specified, and
Yeah.
stupid provisions are put in there and things like that. So it's kind of like it when you see it kind of thing,
Yeah.
where there's not necessarily like, you just know by looking at something that AI generated it. I mean, even if it's
Yeah.
highly refined, you can still tell AI generated it. And I mean, there's like, like there's things that are missing, like dispute resolution provisions and
Yes.
venue provisions and attorney fee provisions, and like, uh, what if we are 50-50 in a business and we have a tie? Where's our tiebreaker? Like, just things like that are all just
Yeah.
missing
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or
So
glossed over very quickly.
yeah, so a specific example from my world, like some kind of like letter of intent, which can benefit from having legal eyes glance over it, but it can also be quite plain language, like a letter of intent to, for example, acquire a business. What are some kind of like useful things to put in a contract high level, and like the bare minimum when you think about it?
Well, there's great short contracts and there's
Yes.
terrible long contracts, and I've seen
Perfect.
both.
Well done. Yeah.
So it's not just that it's got to be a certain length to be good, or it can't be a certain length to be good. It's just got
Yeah.
to have the material provisions in it for what it is you're doing and what it is you're looking for and how to do it, and how to, if there's a problem, how to resolve it. And
Yeah.
if you got
Yeah.
to add to it, how to add to it, or if you got to change it, how to change it. So as long as that stuff from a very high level is in a contract and all the bases are covered,
Yeah.
you can have a two-page contract that's great, and you can have a 100-page contract that's terrible.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of, are the material terms in there? Are
Yes.
the scenarios accounted for? And if they're not, is there a way to fix it later on? If the answer is yes, then the contract's, you can use the contract.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that many people don't think about right now is the whole area of intellectual property and so on. I know it's not your specific specialty, but how can people stand clear of having to fight over intellectual property, settle or mediate? So you got two people in front of you, and there is some kind of fight. One is a fight financially even worth to take, or just like walk away because of just the cost versus benefit calculation. Any kind of high level principles?
Well, with intellectual property, just as a general provision, you want to make sure that you protect your intellectual property, whether it's your personal
Yes.
intellectual property or your business intellectual property. You want to make sure, you register your trademarks, your
Yeah.
patents, your copyrights, wherever it is you're located in the world. You want to make sure you keep your trade secrets secret.
Yeah.
And then obviously, there's a value to that. So you need to protect it and enforce it. So, I mean, it's a business decision for you to make. I'll answer the legal questions. You're the businessman, you make the business decision. So if your idea is worth it, if your mark is worth it, if your invention's worth it, then you got to do what it takes to protect it. And that's why you have the intellectual property protection in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's worth it, protect it. If not, make a business decision and figure out what you're going to do about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no like bright line test. It's kind of, I mean, it's an overall holistic business decision approach as to what you're going to do about your intellectual property in order to
Yeah.
protect
Yeah.
it and how
Exactly.
much you're
Yeah.
going to spend and how you're going to do it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you agree with me or disagree with me. So many times when I work with legal professionals, I have like a scope and a task, and then like a price for an outcome versus just have like an open tab. I've seen both on both sides. What are the advantages by trying to like name a price in advance versus to have like an open tab from like the buyer of services point of view,
Well,
if that makes
first,
sense.
let me tell you from the seller of
Yes.
services point of view,
Yes.
okay? So the way like I bill, at least for me,
Yep.
American Florida attorney Matthew Fornaro,
Indeed.
is that for like litigation when we're
Yep.
in court doing court stuff, or
Yes.
for an arbitration, doing arbitration stuff or whatever, that's done on an hourly basis.
Yes.
Okay. And that's ongoing
Yep.
because I don't know where it
Exactly.
begins and ends. I'm not
Yep.
in control of that. Okay. That is
Yes.
left to how the other side reacts, how the court reacts, how my client, wakes up one day and says no mas and doesn't want to
Yes.
do anything or whatever. So that's all up in the air. So I
Yep.
can't predict, I can give you a generalized timeline,
Yes.
but I can't predict that you're going to spend 10,000 US to
Yes.
resolve. I can't do that.
No,
Okay.
exactly. Good point.
So that's something that, I bill on an hourly basis. And again,
Yep.
I keep it reasonable. I do necessary work. I don't do superfluous work or whatever. And then we go on and we go over money and budgeting as we go on and whatever. Because I don't know where it ends. Okay.
No, exactly. Yes.
For transactional things
Yep.
like review your contract, draft your contract,
Yes.
redline your contract, things like that. That's something that can be done that I do on a flat fee basis because
Yes.
I know what
Exactly.
it takes to draft a commercial lease.
Yep.
I know what it takes to review an operating agreement or whatever. So that's usually done on a flat fee basis. All right. Where things get a little complex is where you have an ongoing, like, transactional basis. And here's what I mean by that, okay? You're buying a business
Yes.
and there's like a real estate component and there's a intellectual property
Yep.
component and there's employees that are going to come along with it and there's, you know, non-competes for the people you're buying it, just all kinds of stuff, okay?
Yep. Yeah, I know what you
That
mean.
that you want to try to do on a flat fee basis to try to make it a set price. But the problem is that when you're involved in big transactions and deals like that, as much as it's not true, it's not litigation where you don't know where the hell you're going.
Yes.
But it's not like I looked at your sales agreement and I gave you a write up about it and it was like a 2 hour thing that I did and it's done. It's
Yep.
somewhere in between.
Yes.
And that's a problem for attorneys because if you were to bill that hour straight hourly, it's totally economically unfeasible.
Yes.
But at the same time, if you bill that on a flat fee basis, you're married to that work. And
Yep.
if you didn't judge it correctly or whatever, you're going to get killed
Yes.
because you're going to do a ton of work and only make, a little amount of money, or vice versa. You
Yes.
overcharge the client and it took you an hour to finish everything. So that's probably the hardest piece to price and to go
Yes.
over from a cost standpoint or a fee standpoint is that scenario. The other two, like I said, not so much. And that's something as a consumer or a client you should be looking for. But
Yes.
for the big deals in the multi-phase deals, that's always a hybrid or that's always a touchy
Yep.
point where
Yes.
it could be ongoing because, like I said, those things take on a life of their own. I mean, you're into that for months at a time, possibly. And again, a
Yes.
bank says something wrong, all of a sudden we got to go, it could get crazy very quickly. So that's why that's very hard to, account for and to figure out what to do.
Yeah,
But the
exactly.
others are much easier.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know the answer of many of the questions I'm asking. It's mainly for the people who might have very limited
No.
exposure to attorneys at all. So same thing there. Personally, I think it's really worth that initial investment. If you're going to set up a company, set up those fundamentals as well, or you will lose out later. And many of those standard first agreements, unless you make it really complicated and bespoke beyond recognition, those are fairly standard agreements that can be customized within reason for like we just heard here from Matthew. You can have like a flat fee for that setup founders document series that you might need. So yeah, okay, good, good, good. All right. So what are some thoughts from your profession that you would like to share with entrepreneurs, like general guidelines, advice, thoughts about anything at all. Um, Things you can prevent, things to consider. You've seen so many things. How can people be a little bit more prepared?
Sure. I mean, first of all, I know as an entrepreneur or whatever, you like to wear a lot of hats and you like to
Yes.
be in charge. But, as the entrepreneur or the business owner or whatever, like we've been talking about previously, your
Yeah.
main job is to focus on your business and make business decisions. So you want to bring in and surround yourself with people who help you
Yeah.
make good business decisions. So don't be afraid to bring on board a business law attorney, an accountant, a banker, whoever else you need for your industry to help advise you and help make you,
Yeah.
help you deal with those particular issues so that you can focus on your business and make business decisions and not have to worry about making legal decisions or have to worry about making tax
Yeah.
decisions or have to worry about making financial decisions. So that would be my primary advice is that as much as you're in charge, it's your business or you and your partner or your affiliates business, whatever, there's always a group of people who are willing to help you, who you need to bring in order to make sure that everything runs as smoothly and efficiently as possible
Yeah.
so that you can focus on the business. And that would be my primary thing is everything starts from having the right mindset and making sure that you don't have to do it alone. And then
Yes.
from there, everything else flows as far as making sure you set up the right organization legally and from a tax standpoint, making sure you have all the right documents in place, making sure you have a bank account, making sure you have insurance, and all that stuff flows from having those people on board.
Yeah, yeah, and many people listening to this are in the space or where they would like to acquire a company. And can you just elaborate on why it's helpful to have attorney to have a look on the documents when it's time for due diligence, legal on a company that you might like to buy, for example?
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what's going on unless you
Yeah,
have
yes, exactly.
trained eyes that are looking at, the documents, looking at the accounting, looking at the numbers, looking at, are they parties to lawsuits? Have they been
Yeah,
sued before? What do they own? What are they liable for? So if you don't know what you're looking for, I mean, you just get a stack of documents or a bunch of Dropbox links or something to look at.
yeah,
I mean, you don't know what's going on there. That's why you got to bring in professionals to let you
yeah,
know
no,
they've got
exactly.
legal problems or they've got tax problems.
Yeah. No, I would say that it is more a matter of missing documents than bad documents. I would say, especially for smaller businesses, that you don't know what you don't know until it's too late, which brings us back to
Correct.
where we
They may
started.
not have, I
Yeah.
mean, you may be trying to buy a corporation that doesn't have articles of incorporation,
Yes.
or an LLC that doesn't have an operating agreement, or a partnership
Yeah.
that doesn't have a partnership agreement. So
Yes.
that's,
Exactly.
things you got to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. And it's also quite easy if you do this in another part of the world where you might not be physically become more and more popular now to set up like offshore companies, wherever it might be in the world. You still need the same documents there.
Yeah,
It's the
I mean,
same.
it's pretty much
Yes, but
worldwide. It's all nuanced and different for each
yeah,
jurisdiction, but it's the same concept,
yes,
you know. I mean, there's still legal requirements, there's still tax requirements for
yeah,
the most part.
yes.
There's still, banking requirements that are worldwide. So,
Yeah, and often, even if you think there's no corporation tax, it's still like a responsibility to register your company accordingly and adhere to the local regulations. Again, it's different everywhere. And if you're looking for an attorney in the US, you got also the geography to think about. Can you elaborate on that? You might not be able to practice anywhere in the US, and how does that work for people who are not aware what I'm talking about at all?
sure. So the US is one country, but we're
Yeah.
made up of
Many states.
50 states and multiple territories. And each state and territory has
Yes.
its own state and then from there local legal system. So federally, which means nationwide, you can do certain things, but from a state level, you have to be licensed in the state that you're in doing business in. So I'm
Yes.
licensed in Florida, the District of Columbia, and New York. So that's where
Yeah.
I can practice law and do things at a state level, but I can also do things nationally depending on what the issues are.
Yeah.
But if you're dealing with, if you're abroad or whatever, if you're dealing with a certain state, you need an attorney who's licensed in that state to do things. Otherwise, you're going to have problems, not
Yes.
just from a legal standpoint, but from a does the attorney know what the hell's going on in the state standpoint?
Yeah. Very good point. So, at the moment of recording this, we have a very unusual mediation slash negotiation going on a global scale. I could not help myself last weekend. I wrote like a quite long white paper on some of my business and training thoughts on the negotiation taking place between Iran and the US. And I found a couple of like, if you think mediation or negotiation, some of the missing things which are not there. And again, this is not to be political, but if in this case you got two parties, which ultimately it's more than two parties, most of the parties are not even at the table, leaving that little matter on the side. Uh, Two parties, two lists, not matching lists. How can you, using your mediation thoughts, how can you break like a deadlock to start to think outside the box to not only look on the things on the list to get an actual dialogue, potential solutions, resolutions, and so on? How can you unlock a very much a deadlock beginning as a mediator?
Well, you got to figure out, you know, do they actually want to settle,
Good point.
or are they just there to be there? Because if
Yep.
they're there to be there, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what
Yes.
wizardry you pull out, you're not going to get a deal.
Yes.
So then once you determine that, are these, whoever it is, are they able to come
Yep.
to some kind of settlement?
Yes.
Then you got to figure out, one, I know they have their list of do's and don'ts and lines that they don't cross or
Yep.
whatever. You got to figure out what those are. Okay. And then two, you got to figure out what would a resolution, even a hypothetical resolution, look like. Okay.
Yes.
Just in a third party, what would a resolution look like? And then somehow you have to try to get what's possible to what a resolution looks like, and then have them meet by going over and saying, I mean, I understand you need A through, M, but you're not going to get N through Z. So throw that
Yep.
out the window. Otherwise, go home. And then
Yes.
once they're able to get that mindset, you do the same thing with the other side. And then you figure out, well, where can we meet? And then,
Yes.
what does you meeting and not even meeting in the middle, meeting somewhere look like?
Yep.
And I mean, and it's all negotiation
Yes.
game theory.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, here in
Uh,
the US, we have so many books on, negotiations, like Never Split the
yeah,
Difference
I
and a
know.
bunch of
Yep.
other books that are all about negotiations and stuff like that. And it's just, as much as you want it to be objective, a lot of it's subjective. And, it's what you can do and come up with and how willing people are to actually compromise. And like I said, unless they're really willing to compromise and do stuff, it doesn't matter who you got in there doing whatever. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen. But if they're actually willing to compromise and do stuff, you figure out a universe where that can happen and then try to make it happen.
Yes. Okay. So I have more than a fair amount of friends who, for different reasons, have divorced over the years. Uh, I do have a prenup in my marriage, and thinking about like Stephen Covey, like begin with the end in mind. If you ever are to divorce, etc., etc. I mean, different countries, different rules. Yes. But what is the advantage and disadvantage by having some kind of prenuptial agreement between two spouses in a marriage? Again, not leaving the theme of mediation and parting ways and agreements.
Well, you know, I'm not really a family law attorney, but I can tell you from
Yeah,
a
yeah, in
contractual
principle. Yeah.
standpoint. I can tell you from a contractual standpoint,
Yes.
it's a relationship, just like a business relationship.
Yeah.
And it's a contract that says if the relationship goes bad, how we unwind the
Yes.
relationship and what happens.
Good point.
So that's how a prenup is, depending on what jurisdiction you are and what the
Yeah.
circumstances are. It is a contract that says how you unwind your marriage from a legal standpoint, from a liability standpoint, and whatever. And that's,
Yes.
I mean, it's a lot easier when you get separated or divorced if you have it because you know what the framework is and you know what the starting and end point is and what's
Yeah.
gonna happen or what should happen, I should
Yeah.
say,
What will be
versus rolling the
included?
dice and leaving it up to chance.
Yeah, exactly. What will be included and excluded. So the segue and pivot is back to where we started, like coming back to the business. Ultimately, the partnership agreement and the share and all of those things can also be like the prenuptial agreement inside the partnership. So a preventive thought when everything is green and rosy, so you can avoid a very costly divorce with your business partner later. So yeah,
Yeah.
to elaborate on that one.
Yeah. I mean, that's, what I do is,
Yes.
I mean, a lot of what I do are what we metaphorically call business divorces,
Yes.
which are when two business affiliates, whether they're partners, shareholders, members, whatever, hate each other, don't like each other,
Yeah.
change directions or whatever and break up. And the easiest way to facilitate that, no matter what side you're on, is if there's the governing documents in place to begin with that say how you break it up and how
Yes.
you wind it down and how you disassociate yourselves.
Yeah. Which leads to just like a side conclusion here, and it has been mentioned by previous episodes as well, that one reason why someone might want to sell their business and that they're a motivated seller is perhaps a divorce. And divorce is, just by statistics, quite common. So that can be one way how we can find a deal where someone might have to settle quickly to settle a dispute in the civil side, which might give you a business opportunity as well. So yeah, just food for thought. Okay, so what kind of questions should I have asked you, which are even more close to home that I have not asked you yet? So you now have got a free dancing floor to talk about your specialities or things you'd like to leave with a broader audience.
Sure, Frederick. Well, you've been very thorough. We've had a very interesting conversation. I didn't know we'd be talking about prenups and stuff, so that was pretty
Yeah,
good surprise. I mean, we've gone over the stuff that I deal with. I mean, the transactional stuff,
yeah,
the due diligence, making sure all your stuff's in place. One of the other things
yeah,
is no matter where you are or where you're located, you need to comply with business formalities.
yes,
So no matter where you are, whether you're in the US, whether you're in the UK or wherever, you can't run your business like it's a hobby. You can't run it like it's your alter ego. You can't
yes,
take the kids to McDonald's and use your business account to pay for the Big Macs. You have to keep everything thoroughly separate. You have
yeah,
to run everything professionally. You have to have their own taxes, their own bank accounts, their own, contracts. You don't mix it over with yourself because then you're going to open yourself up for personal liability no matter where
certainly.
you're located in
Yeah,
the world. So you always got to make sure you comply with formalities. You make sure you have your documents in place, you make sure you have your professionals in place, make sure, you know, you have a corporate or an LLC or whatever partnership, a handbook for how everything operates, how you deal with your employees and your
yep,
contractors, and how you do things, because that's another contract to tell you how things happen. And just make sure you stay in contact with your professionals throughout the scope of your business, whether things are good, things are bad, or whatever. Routinely check in with them to make sure everything's on the up and running well. And that's
yeah.
essentially it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so many things you can do as a business owner and as an individual to think about the future. Everything from potentially thinking about your exit tax once you have eventually pass on. So you might set up some kind of trust. You might think about the corporate structure where you might have multiple layers of holding companies to distance yourself from your customers or from your tenants or whatever it might be. So can you just give us a short version of the benefits by having some kind of holding company structure on a principle level?
Sure. I mean, people love layers of ownership trying to isolate themselves from liability
Yeah.
across the world.
Doesn't always work.
So it doesn't always work, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's not always necessary. Your
Yes.
business, a lot of people's businesses just aren't big enough and don't do enough to justify having crazy structures.
Yeah. Got it.
But some people are into that. So, I mean, as part of your business organization thing or whatever, and obviously consulting with your tax people for money liability purposes, whatever,
Yeah.
sometimes you may want to have a company that owns a company or an LLC that owns a company or an LLC that owns real estate or a trust that owns whatever. And that's
Yes.
all goes not just into the business law aspect or the corporate law aspect, but that also goes into your personal estate planning and
Yes.
your trust planning things of how you like how you want to individually handle your money or whatever
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
tax purposes, depending on where you're located, or, liability purposes, depending on where you're located. So, I mean, it's part of the holistic view of,
Yeah.
in addition to just setting up your company or setting up your thing, do we need to structure it in the tiered thing? And that's something where I would, bring in your accountant and maybe bring in for here in the States, bring in like
Yes.
a tax attorney and figure out, do you need all this structure or are we just wasting a bunch of time and money and it's not going to save anything?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So you've been super generous with your overarching advice, whether it's been your specialty or not. So what do you really prefer to help people with? What is your company name? And where can people actually find you if they'd like to follow up for a conversation or to follow your work?
Sure. So I like helping small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups, no matter where they're located, throughout the life of their business from before they start to after
Yeah.
they sell or after they do something. So I can help them with anything, litigation, transaction, or whatever. I'm here in South Florida, USA, but I practice across the country. If you want to get a hold of me, you can check out my website, which is fornarolegal.com. It's got all my contact information, social media, and all my information.
Yeah.
And that's it, Frederick. Thanks for having me. It was a fun time. We answered a lot of interesting questions.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. So yeah, so again, I hope that we've opened Pandora's box a little bit here by putting the light on some important things that you, again, coming back to the beginning of this episode, like we can fix it later. That is not usually the solution. So we hope that
Yeah.
that message came across loud and clear. We've both been in business for many years, and we hope especially the younger audience can take this to heart and to do something about it before it's too late. No doom scrolling here. We're just happy practitioners sharing ideas. So yeah, I think that was it for this time. I do have a not legal question at all. It is basically, what does investing in you mean to yourself?
Well, investing in me means I
Yes.
continue to refine me from a knowledge and information standpoint regarding everything in my life,
Yes.
working on my business, working on, my family relationship and working with my kids, my wife, my parents, and, working in my community. And that's it.
Yeah, sounds perfect. And for those of you who have no idea, you might have heard about Florida, you might have heard about Miami and so on. Uh, Again, this is not tax advice, but just what is generally the income tax for Miami? I will have a conclusion after this. So, what is the normal income tax for salaried people in Florida at the moment?
There's no state income tax. It's all federal. So the income tax is zero at a
Exactly.
state level. You pay
Exactly.
whatever the tax man in Washington D.C. says. But
Exactly.
for
So,
Florida, it's zero.
and what is the corporation tax on profits?
Corporation tax is also minimal.
Yes.
And soon, I don't know if you heard this, Frederick, but we may be getting rid of property taxes as well in Florida. So
Yeah.
that will soon hopefully be zero. I don't know where we're getting money from to run this place, but
Yeah.
we may be getting rid of property taxes
Yeah.
too.
No, I knew that and I heard about the rumor as well. So the reason why I wanted to share that people sometimes overcomplicate things. You don't need to run away to the Cayman Islands and try to hide yourself and your money. There are cheaper options nearby. So, for example, Texas has become very popular lately, Florida as well. Um, so yeah, there are many ways how you can structure your life, but ultimately, don't forget where your parents are living. Like Matthew said before, like you need to care about that as you're investing into yourself, your extended family as well. So you can't do like me, just be on the other side of the world and be untouchable from your parents. You need to stay in touch.
All right.
Good one. All right. So thank you to the global audience. We look forward to see you next time again. Thank you ever so much.